She's awesome.
Hi, Arthur. How are you? Allie, Pam. Okay, great. We're getting people joining in.
Okay, Bob, thank you. We're live now, so I'll make you the host and then please make me the co-host again, okay?
Okay. There you go, Phil. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Understanding the Cloud. And we'll get going in just a few minutes here.
Does the cloud work when it's a sunny day?
The cloud works, pretty much all the time. Sunny, shady, rainy, lightning, other things like that. Yeah, it works pretty much all the time. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the cloud today. Anybody have anything they're hoping to get answered about the cloud that they were wondering about before they joined class today?
I'm concerned about this email that they sent out about 6 months ago. As of, excuse me, June 1st, your users of the cloud and downsizing pictures so it won't use so much of the cloud.
Well, it depends on which cloud you're using. Okay, so there's actually quite a few different clouds out there that are run by different companies. So we'll talk a little bit about that, Viola, and see if we can help get you an answer for that. Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
So
All right.
what exactly does the cloud, the purpose of the cloud, this is what we're going to talk about?
This is what we're going to talk about. How
Okay.
what it is,
Mhm.
where it lives,
Okay.
what it's made out of, who owns it, all of those things. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, because believe it or not, it's actually physical. It's just the cloud kind of came about as a marketing term. So let me go ahead and get started and with a few slides. And these are some good questions. So we have a good sense of what people are interested in. You should see a slide for understanding the cloud now. And I'm going to share my slide presentation. I'm going to open up chat. We do have Phil, who's my teaching assistant today, that'll be monitoring chat and helping out with a few things. Okay. For those of you, I see some new faces that haven't taken classes from me before. I'm out of Seal Beach, California. I was born in Chicago and came out to college on the West Coast and pretty much stayed here most of my adult life. I worked in the tech industry and started a couple of companies, and I started teaching adults about technology in 2007 at community colleges and joined Get Set Up about 2000 or just recently in January. So as you know, for those of you that have taken classes on Get Set Up, anybody new to Get Set Up at all? or some of you have taken some classes. Okay, so we're a training and learning community. We are recording the session, so you can request a recording by sending an email to help@getsetup.io. If you're joining by live stream, we encourage you to join us and register for a class. And we're not paid to promote specific products or services, but we might mention them as part of our training activity here. Okay, so our agenda today is to help you understand what is the cloud and how using the cloud can help you, okay? And what some of the major cloud services are that are out there, okay? So hopefully that's what you were expecting in the agenda. That's what we're going to cover. Of course, we'll have time for questions, and we have some people that may or may not know as much about the cloud as they might not realize. You probably know more about the cloud than you think you do. It's just that a lot of things you've been doing have been in the cloud. It's just that you might not have known they've been taking place in the cloud. Kind of interesting. So let's take a look at this terminology, the cloud. What in the world is the cloud? Well, the cloud consists of computers connected together by cables that are somewhere outside of your home. Okay. So if you have a home, let me see if I can draw a little house here. Okay. With a nice roof, and you have a home, and that's you, and everything else that's away from you is considered the cloud. It's not an official specification that's run by any government agency. It's not like, USDA Prime or USDA Choice where certain things have to be met to meet it. It's not like it's 90 octane gasoline. There's no specification for this word called the cloud. It's more of a marketing term than anything else. Okay. And so as a result of that, a lot of people, a lot of companies and people use the cloud to just describe things that happen out on the internet. And so that's a good way to think of the cloud as stuff that happens on the internet. But where in the world is this thing called the internet, and where does the cloud, exist, right? Well, it consists of computers that are in facilities called data centers and cables that connect these things together. And so it's really physical. You can actually get your hands on it if you know where to look. But it's not like everybody advertises, hey, this is our big cloud building, where we keep all of our Facebook data or something like that. Any questions about that? I'm going to show you a cable map of undersea cables around the world because they're actually out there. Okay. So there are these things called data centers. I'm fortunate that I had the opportunity to visit data centers and explore them and get into them. And they're basically buildings that are set aside for computers. They hold computers, and they hold them in racks and racks and racks and rows and rows and rows. And they have lots of cables that connect all these computers together. And usually a data center is connected to the internet. And so because most of the time people want to get to things on data centers. So computers can do a lot of things. Like we're using computers for Zoom, we're using computers for watching video, we're using computers for getting maps, we use our smartphones for chatting and all kinds of things. So computers can do a lot of different things. And so what these computers do in the data center just kind of depends on what their owners want them to do. They're typically owned by a company or an organization. Some companies own their own data centers, and they're located all over the world. Some common names like Apple, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft own data centers. Some companies like Facebook and governments and universities and corporations own data centers as well. And so they really are there to house computers, and they're connected to each other all over the world. Now, not everybody's going to tell you exactly where their data centers are because sometimes they want to keep it a secret. But this is a map of one company's data centers. You can see they're in the United States and Canada and Europe, in the Soviet Union, in India, in Africa, Australia. And every one of these pins has a building like what you saw. And they're connected to each other by cables. There's a company that keeps track of cable maps around the world. And this is just an example of all the different cables. There's hundreds and hundreds of cables that connect everything, from the world, from the United States to the Pacific Ocean, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And this doesn't even show the cables that run in our streets, alongside railroad tracks and other things. Whenever they're digging up a street, there's probably a 50-50 chance they're doing it to put new cabling in the street. But these are actually physical things that exist around the world that you can see and touch if you know where they're located. And these are what these cables look like coming out from under the water. And so You know, they're protected by pipe, and you know, when ships go out to sea, they lay these cables out there, and there's people that do, you know, manhole covers that cover the streets. They're, you know, where all out of the cables run in our street and traffic. So it's physical. This stuff is physical. It actually exists. And you've got a cable to your home from your internet service.
Who said thank you?
Carol, did you have a question, or was that? Okay, so it might have just, what helps sometimes when we have a little bit larger group is to mute your microphone. If you accidentally unmute it, we understand, but Phil will keep track of making sure we don't get any noise that interrupts our class if somebody has their microphone on accidentally, okay? Any questions about this? It's really out there. It's just that you may not know exactly where it is, but it's really out there. It's like if I told you, well, the electricity you get when you plug your coffee maker into an electrical outlet, that electricity is made somewhere. You may not know physically where the power plant is located or where the hydroelectric dam is located, but it's out there somewhere. And so these data centers and cables are all really out there, and that's what helps make up the cloud, okay? Now, the cloud can do a couple of things, okay? One of the things that's common on the cloud and the internet is called the World Wide Web. And so it's some of these computers in these facilities run websites like getsetup.io and google.com and amazon.com. And so that's one thing that a computer can do, is to say, okay, I'm going to be a website, and when people, you know, get to me, they're going to find me, they're going to find a website. So that's one thing that cloud computers do. So when you're using the web, you're using the cloud. Okay, it's just that part of the cloud's commonly called the World Wide Web. When you store something in a cloud storage drive, how many of you use cloud storage drives? Anybody using like Google Drive or OneDrive? Okay, Shirley, I see you waving. Okay, Viola. Okay, or iCloud from Apple. That's just a computer that's set aside with some storage space, and you're using it. Okay, so it could be anywhere in the world. You may not know physically where it's located, but the internet gets you to it when you actually want to get to your cloud storage. So the web, cloud storage, other things like maybe Google Maps. If you ever use Google Maps to find directions anywhere, the map is not on your smartphone. It's not physically on your phone or your tablet or anything like that. The map is actually somewhere on a computer out in some data center somewhere. And when you tap the Maps application and you get directions, the directions are sent from a computer somewhere in the cloud to your phone to give you directions. So your phone, your internet connection, your cellular connection, they keep you in touch with the internet and the cloud all the time. So Shirley has a question about how do I get pictures out of the cloud? Well, it depends on which cloud you use. And that's a really good question, Shirley, because that kind of reminded me of what I was telling a friend of mine about the cloud. You know how you have something called cash, you know, real dollar bills and coins, right? We use our credit cards and ATM cards a lot, but there is something called cash, currency, physical money, right? And maybe you keep your money in your wallet or your purse. Maybe you stuff it underneath a mattress, you know, but it's at your home and you can physically get to it, right? I keep a few, you know, spare dollars in a little envelope in my desk drawer, just as, you know, you never know when you need a little bit of extra cash and you can't get to the bank, right? But I keep that cash on me. That's kind of the equivalent of keeping data on your computer in your home or on your smartphone. Because if you got it with you physically, you can get your hands on it, right? Like a dollar bill, you can get your hands on it if it's in your wallet or purse, right? Okay, so now you understand that. And now, what happens when you put your money in a bank? Do you see the dollar bills anymore? No, you see a balance on your bank account, don't you? You're using a kind of a cloud, but it's a cloud for banking. You store your money in a bank, right? But basically, they're just telling you what your balance is, and they're saying you have $5 in this bank account, right? Well, do you physically have it in your hands? No, no, but you know it's your $5, don't you? Right? Okay. So how many of you have a bank account with more than one bank? Anybody? Okay. You know, you have, we do that, don't we? We might have one bank and another bank and another bank and another bank. Okay, let me give you a theoretical story here. Let's say you deposit money in Bank of America. It's just a bank, okay? And you put $5 in Bank of America, and then you decide, I think I'll open up a bank account at Wells Fargo. I'm going to put $5 there. And you decide, I'm going to open up a bank account with my credit union. I'm going to put $5 there. So you've got $15 total, don't you? Right? 5, 5, and 5. Okay, 5 in Bank of America, 5 in Wells Fargo, and 5 in the credit union. Okay, so this is B of A. Okay, I'll write here. This is Wells Fargo, and this is the credit union. Okay, you're walking down the street or you're driving around town, you see a Wells Fargo branch, and you say, okay, I'm going to pull into the parking lot, go into the Wells Fargo branch. How much money can you get out of Wells Fargo? $5, right? $5. Can you get the money from your credit union out of your Wells Fargo bank? No, it's
No.
a union. So what you have is the equivalent of cloud storage in each of these banks, right? And they're separate from each other, aren't they? And so if you have something in this cloud, or in this cloud, it's like having money in each separate bank account. But if you forget, I haven't done this yet, but I'm sure the day will come when it happens to me, is I'll forget where I put money in what bank I put it into, right? It happens to people, but fortunately it hasn't happened to me. But people do it because they have these unclaimed property websites that states, right? Well, this bank account was never claimed by anybody. If you don't have activity, I think in 2 years in California where I live, the organization's required to send you a letter telling you you didn't have any activity and verifying who you are. So how do you get pictures out of the cloud? Shirley, it depends on where you put them. Think of it like putting your pictures in a bank account. What bank account did you put them into? And then you can go get them out of there. That's the challenge of using the cloud, is that we use a lot of different technology and we use a lot of different clouds. So one of the things you can do is to connect to the cloud through your internet service. That's generally how we do it at home. We might have a computer or that connects up via cable or Wi-Fi to some device in our home that's provided by our internet service provider, and they connect us to the cloud, and then we can find anything we need to on the cloud. Or a cellular company, you have a smartphone, and so if you have a smartphone and you have a cellular connection, the cellular service like Verizon and AT&T might connect you to the computers out there. So if, like Shirley is saying, she uses Google Pictures, you have to connect to the Google computer in the cloud with your Google account. If you have pictures, if you have documents in Microsoft OneDrive, you connect up to OneDrive in the cloud. If you have pictures with if you have documents in iCloud, you connect to iCloud. So you're just getting connected to the internet, but you're being connected to a specific set of computers that have your information on them, depending on where it is. Now, I'd recommend that there's some good classes on using Google Drive and Google Class that would help you out. And this is more of a general class to help you understand what the cloud is, how, and a little bit about the concepts of the cloud so that you can utilize it more effectively. Okay, so any questions about how you connect up to the cloud, how you get to it, what you do with it? We'll talk about a couple of other things that you do with the cloud as well. Okay, there are some technical terms. We're dealing with technology, and so we're dealing with technical terms. It's like if you were learning ballroom dancing, like and you were learning the waltz, you'd learn waltz moves. If you were learning salsa, you'd learn salsa moves. If you're learning technology, you're going to learn some technology terms. This is about the most technical we're going to get. Okay, the internet is a collection of computers. Okay, so these computers that are connected out there that we looked at, they're all connections that are basically out there connected to each other, and you connect to them, you become part of the internet. When you connect via your cell phone or your internet service provider, you become part of the internet. You're one of the computers that's connected there. So all the computers and data centers and everything that's out there is part of the internet. The internet uses a couple of addressing schemes. One of them is called a URL. And a URL is a uniform resource locator. And a URL is there to make sure that you can get to a website or something else, okay? Something popped up on my screen here. There we go. Okay. And that is there to help to make sure you can find something. It's like the addressing scheme on the post office. And so when you have a postal letter and you mail it to somebody, you mail it by putting the person's name, street number, and city, state, and zip code, right? Had to think for a minute, okay? So when people are writing a letter, you put and you want to get the postal service to deliver it, you put their name, address, and on it, and you put a stamp on it, and you put your return address on it as well. And so when you have to put it in the mail, the post office sends it off somewhere, don't they? They put it on a truck, they put it on a carrier, they get it out somewhere, and somehow or another gets delivered to a person that has that name, that street number, that street name, the city, the state, and the zip code. The internet uses something similar to that. It's, instead of being a postal address, it is called an IP address, okay? And when you want to send somebody, when you want to go find a website, you can type in an address here, okay? And like google.com or getsetup.io. And that helps you get to a specific computer out on the internet in the cloud somewhere. So it takes you to google.com where their computer is located. It takes you to amazon.com, takes you to getsetup.io. And that's called the Uniform Resource Locator. It's an address for a web page or a computer, a set of web pages. Computers like numbers, and so every computer on the internet has something called an IP address. Instead of a postal address, it's an internet protocol address, but it's an address just the same. And it's a physical, it tells the internet where that computer is physically located so it can get to it. Okay. So let's see, let's take some questions here. Pam, we're going to talk a little bit about security later. Remind me if I forget, but I'll address security later. And Mara says, does the IP address reveal your name or home address to others, or just a number assigned specifically to your computer? It actually just reveals a number assigned to your computer. Now, there's a couple of caveats to that. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever seen a Google car that runs around with cameras on the top of it that is making up Google Street View. You've heard of Google Street View? Okay, when you go to Google Maps, let me see if I can bring this up here. If I can go to Google
I've
Maps.
heard of it.
Yeah.
Google Street View. Yeah.
When you go to Google Maps.
Yeah.
And there's something called Street View. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's see if I remember how to get there. Okay. Well, I have to get down to something local here. Okay, so Edison Park, and there's Street View, right? So it shows you things that are pictures from people, and it shows you a street view, and it has information on where that is located. Now, when Google ran around with these cars, they ran around cars creating street views for everything, okay? And what they did was when they created these street views, they had Wi-Fi antennas. Oh, there we go. The yellow person logo at the bottom right. There we go. Thank you. Okay. And so if you want to get this, find out something here, you can find out what Street View is. And there we go. Street View, images, Street View. Okay. So if you look at this and scroll over this, you'll see different street views. This is all the path that Google has taken with their cars. And so when they drive around here and look at things, there we go. Thank you. They had to drive around everywhere in order to take these pictures. What they were doing, okay, this gets back to your privacy question, Mara, is that when they were picking up the IP addresses of all of the home routers on the internet to help understand where they're located, so that when you go to Google and you do a search on Google, for example, Google knows where you're located. So if I wanted to find pizza, for example, just pizza, Google will know somehow or another what's nearby me, because they know from information on my IP address about where I'm located. Okay, because they don't know precisely, but they know pretty close. And your phone has an IP address. And so when you go access the internet on your phone might also be picking up GPS information, but your IP address doesn't always reveal your location. It just depends on what the internet service might have been picked up, what Google might have picked up from tracking IP addresses. Now, in some areas of the world, they just know they're regional. In some areas of the world, they know they're pretty close to where you're located. Cookies don't collect your IP address. Cookies collect your web browser information. They just say, hey, I know that's somebody's web browser, but a cookie won't actually contain the IP address of a computer. when you have an IP address assigned by your internet service, let me go back here. Okay. They give you a temporary one that might be with you for weeks at a time or months at a time, but it can change. Okay. Your internet service gives you an IP address in your home, but the computers on the internet have ones that IP addresses that stay the same because they can't move around things like websites and storage and other things like that. So home computers can move around. So we might have our laptop today at our desk. We might have it tomorrow at a library. That IP address can change. But the IP address, the important thing about IP addresses is that they're the way the internet finds things. So every computer's got an IP address. Thanks, Phil, for the help on Google Maps. I don't usually use maps on my desktop that much. So I don't really, pay attention to that. I usually will use it on my phone like most people. Okay, so what are these cloud services that are out there? Well, since the clouds are just computers that are out there, things that are on the web, what you want to be able to do is connect your desktop or your smartphone or your tablet to your cloud and up there. So you could use a cloud for storage. You can use it for backup. You can use it for sharing, also called collaboration. It's possible what people in the workplace have done for years is they've shared like Word documents among a team of people so that people can modify them and edit them. You've got applications that are based in the cloud. We talked about maps, but email, if you use Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail, Outlook Mail, most mail, the mail is actually kept here in the cloud, and you get a copy of it on whatever device you use so that it's kept there as a master copy. But maybe you have calendar up in the cloud too. So keeping things in the cloud gives people like, say Google Maps, they can update their map once. And anybody else whenever anybody comes to get a copy of that map, they get the latest copy of the map. Now think about how that compares to printed maps. I love maps. I collect a few antique maps. They're just fascinating to me. But when you have a paper map, anybody still have the paper map in their glove compartment in their car? That's what glove compartments were. They were kept for gloves and they were kept for maps, right? So when you have a paper map, as soon as it's printed, that's the latest information that it can hold, right? And so if the roads change, if there's new construction that goes up, if somebody changes a street name, the map still has the data on it when it was printed, doesn't it? So it will eventually get out of date. So just like maps that Columbus used to explore, or Magellan, or people in the South Pacific used to, they kept track of maps in their heads mentally and through stories. Maps that people use to get around the world that are physical, they become obsolete right away because they can't be updated. You can't send new information to somebody that has a printed map. You have to buy a new map, right, in order to get the latest information, and then that one becomes out of date. Well, the advantage of keeping something like maps in the cloud is that Google can just say, hey, we know something's been updated. And then as soon as anybody goes to the cloud to get that version of the map, they get the latest version, don't they? So instead of people keeping paper copies or maps on all their smartphones and tablets and desktops and laptops, they just go out to the cloud to get the latest copy of the map. So keeping things in the cloud keeps it centralized, and it used to only be available for businesses or organizations, but now it's available for people. Good question, Pam, and chat about, is there a cost for storing data? I'm going to show you the 3 popular cloud services that most consumers use and what the prices are for them, okay? So you can use the cloud as a way of keeping a master copy. Think of it like a master key for, a building where one key is the master, but everything else is a copy. You can have the data on your phone and in the cloud. You can have the data on your laptop and the cloud. You can have the data on your tablet and the cloud. And so whenever you change something on one of these devices, it sends a message to the cloud and updates it so that whenever another device of yours connects up to the cloud, it gets the latest version, just like Google Maps. You can use the cloud for keeping things up to date and keep a master copy of things. And we kind of do that for our email when we use things like Gmail and Yahoo Mail and other web-based mail accounts. It's the mail is kept in the cloud. We're just getting a copy on our mobile device.
Bob?
Yeah.
Excuse me, you didn't mention a desktop computer.
Well, laptops and desktops are, I'm going to call them the same. Thanks for pointing that out.
Oh, okay.
But a desktop/laptop would be something that you would connect up to the internet. But some people have both desktops and laptops. So if you've got 2 computers, one of the things the cloud makes it easier to do is to move information from one computer to another, because these days computers don't come with floppy drives, right? They don't even come a lot of times with DVD. If you tried to find a place to connect up a disk drive to your phone, it'd be pretty hard. They're meant to work on networks and exchange information with networks to other devices. And so having something centrally located as a master copy instead of, and I think this is a change of thinking for some people, because we oftentimes think of, well, all the information I really need is on my desktop or laptop on my hard drive. Well, that's a good place for it. But if you're trying to get it from that hard drive to somewhere else, it becomes a little more difficult. But if you keep information in the cloud, it becomes easier to get to it no matter what you use. And these days we're using more than one device lots of times.
So, excuse me, so do you have to sync those to those other devices?
Depends on the application. The cloud services like Microsoft and Google and Apple will synchronize information for you automatically if you use the clouds.
And can you turn the cloud off? Can that be turned off, or is always?
Well, when you don't have a connection to the internet, your cloud is turned off, or you just don't have to store things in the cloud if you don't want to. Think of it like putting money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep the cash in your purse or wallet, or you can put it in the bank.
So what do you do? Go in there and turn the storage off or something? I don't get that part.
Well, each cloud's a little bit different. So how to use the cloud is something we teach in the cloud classes on OneDrive and Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
That's where you learn how to use it.
Okay.
Somebody had their hand up, and I forget who it was.
I did. This is Bobby Henderson.
Yeah, Bobby.
If I change my email password and my tablet is an Android, but I changed it, so does it change on both? And you have to update?
If you're using the same email address on more than one device, say your laptop and your tablet or your phone and your tablet, it's the same email account. And so it needs to use the same email address and the same password. It's like your bank account, you know, when you have to use the same account number whenever you go to the
Right.
right.
Even
Right.
though the tablet is an Android, it's still change. You need to update them all.
You need to update them all. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm glad that was to help out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because this is it. It's like if I had a master, let's say I had an apartment building and I was the apartment manager and I had a master key that opened up all the locks and I had a locksmith come in and I had them change all the locks, right? I would need a new master key, wouldn't I?
Yes.
Yes, you figured it out, right? That's exactly what happens is that if you change it on one device, it has to change on all of the devices.
Thank you so much. That clears up a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And the more challenging part in the how-to classes, they talk about the different changes that are there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's talk about the major services here. Okay. Apple, Google, and Microsoft. They're typically what we would use for cloud. People with Apple devices, Macs, iPhones, and iPads, that's what iOS is. Works on Windows. They have a download option for Windows and it works on the web. Apple offers iCloud. It includes storage and synchronization for services and applications, but you get 5 gigabytes free. And if you want to go over 5 gigabytes, you would pay 99 cents a month for 50 gigabytes of storage. And to give you an idea how much that is, I have about 6,000 photos that I store in iCloud, and I use about 25 gigabytes of storage. So that's how much it'll store. It'll store a lot of information. Now, Apple gives you the ability to store information from a lot of iPhone apps like Pages, Keynote, Numbers, Photos, Calendar, others too. So think of it as a type of bank account. You keep something in iCloud. With Apple, it's in the Apple iCloud. So you would need to go to the Apple iCloud in order to access it and use it. So that's Apple's plan, okay? If you are primarily an iPhone, iPad, Mac user, you're probably going to be looking at using iCloud, I would suspect. But that's not the only one. There's Google. Google has OneDrive and Google Docs. They all include storage and they all include some applications. So Google works on a lot of things. Most Android users, because Android is made by Google, probably are using Google Drive. If you're using a Chromebook, you're probably using Google Drive, but you can use Google Drive and Google Apps on Windows and iPhones and iPads and Macs as well. Just depends on what you're most comfortable using. So you get 15 gigabytes of storage free with Google, and if you go over that, you need to start paying $1.99 a month for 50 gigabytes. Okay. And you can go up. In all of these plans, you can go up to a terabyte or even more of storage. Okay, so they give you the ability to expand your storage if you want to, because more and more people are kind of discovering, if I keep my information in the cloud, it's there wherever I want to get to it, and I have it backed up. They back up the information for you, so it's a safe place to keep it. So Google gives you applications like Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, Photos, and other apps too. So you see they're pretty similar. There's some minor differences between them, but they're similar in types of services they offer. And then there's Microsoft. Microsoft has a cloud called OneDrive, and they have something called Microsoft 365. Sorry, my mouse sometimes advances a slide. I'm not sure exactly the way I'm touching it that causes that to happen, but sometimes when I touch it in a particular way, it does it. So on Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and web, you get 5 gigabytes free as part of OneDrive. You can buy storage on OneDrive for $1.99 a month for 100 gigabytes, or you can subscribe to Microsoft 365. And Microsoft 365 will give you Word, PowerPoint, Excel, photos, a lot of extras, and you get 1 terabyte of OneDrive storage for your subscription. It's about $70 a year for one person, and a family plan is $100 a year that you can use for up to 6 people. So each of the major companies have their services. They're pretty similar to each other in that they give you some common application device. Microsoft will run on Android, on iPhones, iPads, Macs, as well as Windows desktops. So you can use them on almost any kind of device you might need to use, okay? So those are some of the major cloud services. So Pam, did that answer your question about storage for you, pricing, and where you get to using them, and security? Now, these are very secure companies. Okay, Microsoft, Google, and Apple all offer services to U.S. government agencies. They have their own security staff. The biggest risk to you from a security standpoint is not having a strong enough password. So if you have a weak password, that's just like, and they won't let you create a weak password. They'll typically require you to create what's called a strong password that includes letters, numbers, capital, and lowercase, and a special symbol like a exclamation mark or an @ sign to make your password harder to guess, okay? So Shirley, if you were trying to get to your pictures in Google, you would need to go to your Google Cloud account if that's where your pictures were, your photos were stored whenever you uploaded pictures. If you used Apple's iCloud, they would be in your Apple account in the photos. Now, generally, the apps, the applications, when you use an application like PowerPoint or Keynote or something like that, and you need to get to it, information, the application knows where the data, where the information's been saved. Now, this is a big business, okay? For those of you that are curious, well, what's going on with the cloud? Amazon is actually one of the biggest cloud services company. In addition to running a huge retail store and warehouses and distribution of products, they run a lot of data centers, and they make those data centers available for people to buy services on it. They call it AWS, short for Amazon Web Services. They generate $51 billion a year last year from their cloud business. Pretty big. Pretty
Can you
big.
get groceries on Amazon down there now?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Could you repeat that, Shirley?
Can you get groceries from Amazon?
Yeah, you can.
I've heard it's coming. I don't know if it's here yet or not.
Yeah, they bought a company called Whole Foods, and
Okay.
I don't know if they deliver directly on Amazon's website or from Whole Foods website, but they do grocery delivery through their Whole Foods, I know. So Amazon runs a cloud business, and they sell it to other people. So when you use somebody like, say, Uber or Lyft, they may not have their own data center. They may be buying services from Amazon. Okay. Microsoft runs a business called Azure. It's a $56 billion a year business. They sell cloud services to other businesses and companies, just like Amazon does. And Google, you'd think they'd be the biggest cloud company, but they run their own business, but their cloud business is actually number 3 after Microsoft and Amazon. But it's still pretty big. $16 billion a year is not a bad size for a business, is it? And that's just the cloud. That doesn't include their advertising or anything else. So there are some other companies out there, IBM, Dropbox, Oracle, Comcast, even computer companies like Dell and HP are getting into cloud services. And this business is growing at 25 to 30% a year. It really ramped up fast with the pandemic, but it's been growing 25, 30% every year. So Marlene has a question. I use Google on my laptop, but I have an iPhone. Well, this is where you become a person called a systems integrator. So if you have services from Microsoft and Google, and it depends on which one you tend to use the most and which one you're most comfortable with. If you are a person that uses a lot of Gmail, and you use Google Drive for storing things, I'd recommend you consider Google for your iPhone. Apple lets you download Google Apps for your iPhone, because remember we looked at the fact that these services like Google, it'll run on a Mac, iPhone, iPad, Windows, Android, Chromebook, and web. But let's say, do you use Docs or do you use Word? Okay, so if you use something like Microsoft Word a lot or PowerPoint, then maybe it's better to use OneDrive and Microsoft 365. So it's more a matter of what do you use more. If you use iCloud, you can get to iCloud on your Windows PC or Mac, or through the web as well. It just depends on which one you use the most. Okay, it's just like anything else, is that you can have 3 bank accounts with 3 banks. Which one should you use? It's going to be a matter of convenience, probably more than anything else, as long as they're all FDIC insured, and they all have ATM networks. They all do, a lot. They keep your money safe. It's more a matter of convenience, but it tends to be better for most people to kind of look at going into one cloud. So if you have Microsoft and Google and Apple products here, how much of an overlap is there? And which one would you want to use? Okay, I'll put Microsoft M, G, and A for Apple here. And so which one do you use the most every day? If you think you're going to be using your iPhone more and more and more, then maybe Apple's iCloud is a better solution for you. But if you have a Windows computer that's going to come with Windows 10, then maybe you're better off using Microsoft Cloud, because you can install OneDrive on your iPhone, but you can't install iCloud on Microsoft. So that you end up becoming this person called a systems integrator. And a systems integrator is a person in the information technology industry that makes technology from different companies work together. Is there a wrong cloud to use? No, you can't go wrong with any of them. Apple, Microsoft, and Google are all really good, reliable companies. They're going to be in business for a while, I think. And so it's just a matter of which one do you find is going to be more convenient for you is really the important one to think about. And I'd recommend you take the OneDrive, the iCloud, and the Google Drive classes, And then you can get an idea, gee, which one should I start gravitating toward? It is easier if you start to use one more than three, because you just cut down the number of things you have to keep track of.
Excuse me, thank you. That really helps.
I'm glad it did it. It's complicated, and I tried to make it as understandable as possible because it confuses a lot of people because you can't really get your hands on this thing called the cloud. Where is it, But it's out there, and typically these three companies run it. So Google Drive, OneDrive, iCloud, great. Windows 10. I do some classes on Windows 10. Finding new apps, home networks, if you're interested in how your network works at home a little bit more. But hopefully we learned some things. You're going to get some notes after class. You'll get some suggestions for new classes and some feedback opportunity as well. We thank you for that. And I appreciate whenever I see feedback. And now when you register for a class with Get Set Up, you can invite a friend. And from both the desktop and the mobile version of the application. So you can request a recording at help@getsetup.io. Suggest a class, share it with any organization, let them know about us. And we have a few minutes for any questions that come up before we wrap up. So let me get my screen back here. And let's see, Mara asked, is there a OneDrive app to put on your Android phone? Yes, there is. You can install OneDrive on Android, iPhones, iPads, and Macs. And you can get to it from the web as well, with any web browser. So now hopefully this started you thinking a little bit about, hey, wait a minute, I've got some choices, right? You don't have to be scratching your head and saying, well, where is this thing called the cloud? It's out there, and who runs it, and which one should you consider using? You can start to make some more informed decisions, hopefully, okay? So any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Glad we got a lot of questions answered. So you all learned something new today?
Yes.
Right? Okay, maybe 2 or 3 things, right? That's great. That means we're, and so this is a path, on technology to kind of learn it bit by bit. Don't be afraid to come and take the class again. I'm happy to have you sit in anytime or request a recording or join us for other classes on Get Set Up. But the ones on OneDrive and iCloud and Google Drive, they'll explain more how to use them, how they actually work. That'll help you out, okay? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon, and enjoy your other classes on Get Set Up if you're taking some more today, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.